A few years ago, my wife walked into our house and said, "Hey, I saw an ad and they're building a new condo tower in downtown Denver. When do you think it'll be finished?" So the thing you need to know about me is I spent about 20 years in the corporate world in sales in construction and building materials. And I knew that this was a long process. It wasn't just like, hey, they announced it and it's up, a week from now. This isn't like a 30-minute TV show that we're making. This is a real building going up. And so I just thought, you know what? I'll just say, there's a long process, babe. Land development, zoning, surveying, approvals, lots of government regulation, environmental, engineering, architectural, obviously, bidding, project management, financing, all of that. And then, I know the public's asking where the building is, but then they start the work. And the work starts deep underground. It is really cool to see these buildings go up. One of the things that's really, really cool about this is watching the underground work. Very frequently, they construct pilings deep into the ground, made of concrete, steel, rebar, lots of materials going into that in order to hit bedrock. And when they hit bedrock, they construct the foundation out of strong piers that then allow that cool condo complex that everybody's been waiting for to reach to the sky. But it starts far below the surface. It starts underground and there's a lot of time. And then years later, it's like, hey, the condo complex is ready to go and people were pre-selling and buying and all excited about it. The point is that in order to build a life that you were created to live, you've got to build it on a bedrock foundation. Very simple concept about your life. Weak foundation, weak life. Strong foundation, strong life. Welcome to the Next Stage Podcast. My name is Rob Stout, and this is episode 26. We're actually 1 year into our development as a podcast. I'm excited that we're heading into our second year. We're 25 down, 1 million to go, but this is episode 26, and this podcast is designed to help you as a man succeed in the areas of life that matter most, to give you resources that are practical and hands-on for everyday life in order for you to achieve your God-given potential as a man. And in this episode, we're going to jump into 4 critical pillars, just like that tower is built on strong pillars, 4 critical pillars for your life. Now, why are we doing that? Well, if you happen to be listening in the calendar year, this is the first episode of the new calendar year. If you're listening to this in July, August, September, it doesn't matter. We are coming back to center on fundamentals, what our lives are built on. And the reason we're doing that is because in speaking to you as a man, I know that you aspire to something really great in your life. I've never met a single man who said, you know what, I just want to train wreck my life. I want to get to the very middle of my life and find out that I've been heading in the wrong direction and I got to backtrack. I want to underachieve. I want to ruin my marriage. I want to damage my kids. No, nobody says that. However, the vast majority of men find themselves at some point in their life, right in the middle, or maybe it's towards the beginning, or maybe it's a little more towards the end, but they find themselves at a point of life going, man, am I centered on the right things? There was a company in my neighborhood who built about 100 houses. I didn't happen to live in this area of the neighborhood, and I'm glad, but they built about 100 houses, and they made a choice to shortcut the entire process and take soil testing that we have to do in Colorado because the soils are so bad, and I know you don't care about that type of thing, but they took tests from another area pretty close by, but they applied them to this neighborhood in order to save money. And so they took profits and put it over quality and service and all of that. These houses are beautiful, fantastic finishes, fantastic countertops, all of that. However, a couple years into the people living and trying to do life in their new home, their windows suddenly weren't able to open. Doors were sticking and hard to open. They began to investigate, and this was a nightmare for these families, for the company who is now bankrupt, because they shortcut the process. What they needed to do after a class action lawsuit was filed, they needed to rebuild these houses from the foundation down. They literally jacked the houses up, put steel beams underneath, drilled pylons into the ground, poured pillars into the ground, found bedrock, and reset the house. Kind of amazing. You know what? It's a problem in our society that we live in a society that is a culture of instant gratification. We want things now. This company wanted things now. They wanted things cheap and they wanted things profitable, but they sacrificed the long-term success. You know, we are not talking about towers and houses and all of that. This is not a construction podcast. This is a podcast about your life. Your life. Trying to build your life on something that's unstable is not a good idea. And yet we do it all the time, don't we? We shortcut building a relationship, a solid relationship with a woman that's based in the right things and building it the right way. And it's called hookup culture. And people are it's like it's just the thing to do. You meet, have sex, figure it out or not, no big deal, move on. When in reality, sexuality and marriage is a multidimensional relationship that sticks for a lifetime when done right and with God's grace to get you there. We shortcut in our career growth by running too fast, and then we find out, oh my gosh, I missed some steps. I was just trying to succeed really quick, and we hit a wall and have to go back. We shortcut in eating habits and exercise when we know that we've got one body, and yet we find ourselves obese and we find ourselves eating horrible foods, and years later it leads to health problems. And we shortcut spiritual growth in our life by not building it on the fundamentals, the foundational principles. Re-engineering and re-excavating a house it's an expensive proposition, but it's not near as long-term damaging as re-excavating and re-engineering a life. Why? Well, because as you get older, if you notice, there are other people involved. There's a wife, there's maybe kids, there's a business that you started and employees that you need to manage. There are people that depend on you. And if you screw up the foundation, you screw up a lot of things. This personally hit home because just a little while ago, a very important person in my life came to me and said, we got to talk. I'm like, okay, we got to talk. So we sat down and this person began to describe to me how some of my actions years ago really landed on them and how it impacted them and how they felt and the results that they're living with now. Man, I went back and thinking about that conversation. I'm like, I wish I had to do it over again. Meant for you, in order to build a life that you were created for, you have to build it on a bedrock foundation, formed on the strongest pillars possible. Weak foundation, weak life. Strong foundation, strong life. So thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Just like in all episodes, I come to you as a Sherpa, as a guide, as somebody who is with you on the journey, but maybe is a little bit farther ahead of you to be able to lend advice and input to help you achieve your full God-given potential in life, to avoid failure and succeed in the most important areas of your life. So what are those 4 pillars? How can you build a strong foundation in your life? Starting out or picking up right now and saying, you know what, I've got some things to fix. I'll fix them. Let's do it. What are those 4 pillars? Well, everything we talk about on this podcast, as well as my speaking around the country, around the world, my writing, everything is built on 4 primary principles. It comes out of a bedrock verse in the Old Testament of the Bible, Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 5, where Moses tells the nation of Israel, he says this, listen, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is so important that thousands of years later, Jesus, when asked and cornered by some leaders who said, they asked him, what is the most important thing in the scriptures? He pointed to that. Like it's the most important thing. Some of our teammates from Sherpa recently took a trip to Uganda in Africa. And we had the opportunity, a privilege actually, to lead 100 of the male leaders of a group called Musana. I'm not going to go into great detail about Musana. If you want to check them out, I'd encourage you to musana.org, musana.org. These leaders were together, and we were doing some training with them, and they do phenomenal work in their community, but their CEO wanted us to be able to build into them as leaders. The men ate this stuff up. And we discovered as we were communicating, this stuff is cross-cultural, it's across time, it is across generations, it is foundational and true. And shout out to the men of Musana who are starting to join us on this podcast. Love what you guys are doing, and may your hearts grow as you lean into this stuff and as you become better men for your community, your country. And by the way, if you want to check out the With Everything Men's Weekend, I would love to tell you about it, to bring it to your church, your organization, a men's group that is together. Let's talk about it. You can email me the next stage at Sherpa5280.com, or just simply visit our webpage at Sherpa5280.com/retreat. But this stuff is foundational, it's true, it's applicable, and it will help you create the foundation that we're talking about. Those 4 pillars are, and we've hit these before, so I want you to just go back and review. It's your passion. It's the area of your life that is soulish. It's the inner core of who you are that allows you to connect with God and with other men. It allows you to connect in relationships with your wife, with your kids, with your neighbors, with people at work. One of the fundamental foundational pillars of your life is the area of your soul. Go back and listen to episode 2 of this podcast. It was great just to deep dive into this area of passion. What is the second pillar? The second pillar is your purpose. This is really the heart space of your life. The metaphor that I like to use is the metaphor of a king. It's that part of you that wants, in really good ways, really healthy ways, to influence, to rule in a very healthy way, to have influence and to have impact in life. It's that area of your life where you want not just to create things for yourself, like a company or to grow a business, but instead to allow other people to thrive in that. What are you doing in the area of your purpose to grow purpose in your life? I would invite you to go to episode number 4, way back at the beginning of this podcast, to check that out. The next pillar for living at a strong life built on a strong foundation, it's power. This is the strength area of your life. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. This is that area of your life where the metaphor I use is the warrior. It's the one in you who wants to protect and provide and promote others around you. It's the thing in you that wants to fight for good in the world. It's also the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning at work to rise and grind and go after it. That's what the warrior is. That's what your power is. What are you doing to lean into that, to grow that area of your life in order to have a strong foundation to build your life off of? Take a look at episode 3. Go back and check that out in the next stage. You can review that information there. 4th pillar. Just moving quickly here, I know, but 4th pillar. What are the pillars in your life? Your passion, your purpose, your power. One more P, your perspective. That's your mind. It's where you invest in yourself and get around other people who are growing that way as well. And you are able to grow as a sage, wise man. This isn't just a phase of life. Like when you grow old, maybe I'll be wise at that point. I know a lot of old people who are really foolish, and I know a lot of young people who are really wise because they're developing this part of their life. In order to build the life you were created for, you have to build it on a bedrock foundation of strong pillars. Weak foundation, men. Weak life. Strong foundation. Strong life. That tower in Denver was finally completed, and it was filled with all kinds of people. People who were married, people who were single, people who were just starting out, people who were empty nesters, families, all kinds of people from all kinds of different backgrounds and different cultures lived in that place, and they created a life there. But that tower had to be built on a strong foundation, or the people would not thrive. If they had taken shortcuts like the builder I told you about, it would have been a disaster. But they didn't. They built it right. Strong foundation, strong life. You might be like, man, what are we talking about this for? What are we jumping in for? Here's the thing, and it gets us into the action point for this episode. There is an entire generation of people who are growing up sick and tired of the things that they have been given to put in their foundation. They've seen that the things that are offered them are crumbling and can't hold their life. They've been manipulated by the lie of instant gratification. That you could just get what you want when you want it, especially in the area of sexuality. I know we talk about that a lot on the show, but just empty in that area. They've bought into a godless culture that just leaves them empty and wondering, like, what even matters in life? What's real? They bought into and have been fed corrupt politicians who just seem to want power and money, and that's just what it's about, but they don't solve real problems. And they've been hit by COVID shutdowns in some of the most formative times of their life that have really left them wondering, what's true? What lasts? And when it comes to the church, I realize not everybody who listens to this is a follower of Christ, and that's okay. We invite you to come along and find truth. But when it comes to the church has often fed, not all, but some, showmanship instead of substance, entertainment instead of worship and confession, narcissistic, power-hungry, fame-addicted leaders instead of humble servants and shepherds of people. Man, you know what? The generation I see is sick and tired of the things that they've been fed. And they are reaching out to say, is anything real? I'm right there with them. I'm tired of all of the solutions I've been given. I'm tired of all those things, and I want to lean into the very stuff that we're talking about. So my challenge for you is this question. What will you do to work on your foundation? What will you do to go to work on that passion area of your life? Maybe it's developing a daily rhythm of meeting with God. Maybe it's developing a daily rhythm of reading ancient scripture that is not, it is not on Instagram. It is not Facebook. It is not X. It is not any of these things. Man, that stuff is all just fleeting and just garbage most of the time. But maybe it's starting your day by sitting quietly in meditation and reading some of the richness of the scriptures instead of jumping on your social media, on your phone, or God forbid, the mind-numbing, relationship-destroying, and personality-manipulating gaming. What are you doing this year to grow your passion? Secondly, what are you doing to grow your purpose? Maybe it is time for you to put a real game plan together for your life. Maybe it's time for you to stop complaining and stop moaning and groaning about the boss or about this or the man's on your back or you don't have the right education, family, not enough money, whatever it is, whatever excuse you use. And maybe it's time for you to make a plan for your life and get moving and take some risks that will get you where you know you were made to go. Maybe it's time to work on your power. Maybe finally this area of your strength, your body, the action that you take, maybe it's time for you to stop making excuses and get serious about an eating plan and a steady workout plan that works for you. You don't have to look like me, all muscular and fit and ripped. My son-in-laws will listen to this and they'll be like, that was good because you are not in good shape. You know what? Those dudes are in their 20s. I'm in my late 50s. So whatever. But what works for you? What works for you? Or are you choosing instead to just develop health conditions that will one day end your life? Finally, your perspective. What are you doing? What are you doing to develop and grow in that area and gather other wise people around you and kick around ideas that aren't just yours in your little vacuum or in your little echo chamber of what you tend to listen to on media, but what are you doing to expand and grow your mind to become a sage, wise man? That's my challenge for you. What are you doing to strengthen your foundation? In order to build a life that you were created for, you have to build it on bedrock foundation, formed on the strongest pillars possible. Men, weak foundation, weak life. Strong foundation, strong life. Thank you for joining us on The Next Stage. This has been episode 26, and join us for episode 27. These episodes drop every 2 weeks. We're talking about a subject that I think is going to be incredible, and that is what really matters. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to The Next Stage podcast. And also, if you're on YouTube, scroll up and click that little bell that reminds you that the next episode is coming. We appreciate 5-star reviews. That would help us spread what we're doing to more men. We want to do that, want to have a broader reach, and we'd love your feedback. If you would email us, the next stage at Sherpa5280.com. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, keep reaching to achieve the God-given potential that you were made for. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on our next episode.